Rotarian Jessica. Thank you, members on the forum on behalf of the Rotary Club of Kasana Luweero. Humbled to be invited as a speaker to your fellowship, having been given a very big task of Rotarians' involvement. Jessica, can I share my screen? If not, I can still continue and talk without the screen.
You can share the screen now.
Come again?
You can share it now.
You can, Norbert. Share, please. Norbert has connected.
Oh, my brother Norbert. Okay.
Yes.
Nice to hear from you, Norbert. Let me see that the permissions given to me can work more. View 100%. I just don't see why I can't view. Okay. Share the screen. I want to continue. Okay. Just a moment, members. I think I need this projected that way. Can I go here? Technology can also be an issue. This share that. Is my screen viewable to members?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, thank you so much. Apologies for that short delay. Members, my club is Chambogo Kampala, and we are about to start fellowship. It starts at 6:30, but I now will be able to join them by 7. But I also belong to another club, which is international. It's called the E Club of Wash, and it's based in District 9980. And this helps me to link up with various peoples around the world. I'm humbled to be talking to members of Rotary Club of Kasana Luweero. I'm also born of Luweero. Just before you get into Obulenzi, around Aisha Islamic Center, that's our parent and burial ground. And just delighted that I should be able to answer or to share experience. I'm not a magician, I'm not a star in some of these things, but I've taken some good time in Rotary, and I have seen where issues are becoming a challenge, and I want to point out these important things. President and members, I'm going to address this fellowship on 2 angles. One, the things which have to be handled as a club. Then 2, the things which we have to do as individuals. Then I'll look in the do's. In the process, I'll be looking in what Rotarians should do and what we don't have to do. And then we shall cause a discussion. I know I've seen Victoria, so there are many members who can share experience on this issue. But what I want to raise up into this, before we go back, is members as a club. Rotary Club of Kasana Luweero should have a legal registration. There is a registration which is under the Rotary system, but there is also a legal registration which is as by the laws of Uganda in the Uganda Registration Service Bureau. I know AG as K must have shared this information with you, but it becomes prudent that I repeat it just for emphasis or any new member who has just come in, so that you have to know that as a club, you're working legally in the processes and in the systems of and the laws of Uganda. The other issue as a club, you must have systems. And this is now where our involvement needs to be. There are 7 different systems which a club must have, and I'll be showing them to you at either stages. It also calls for all of us to be redistributed, and everyone has a control. I mean, they have a jurisdiction where they can sit and talk on behalf of the club. Meanwhile, leaving others also to sit and talk on behalf of the club in other areas. Having an all-knowing person is good, but having one person to be commenting and directing on everything is where the challenge is coming from. So Rotarians' involvement, as the discussion is supposed to be, requires that the club systems must be working. And in those systems, there are the 5 committees, which you know, and also financial must be there. But most clubs lack what we call a procurement committee. And this is a very, very important team that needs to be involved within this, especially when you're going to deal with global grants. The other role as Rotarians and as a club, you need fundraising teams. Rotary is voluntarism, but also I want to say Rotary has a business component. Rotary has business in that there is something you're giving out to be able to receive something. And to me, that's business. It doesn't mean monetary exchange. It means that as long as you're exchanging something for the other, then there is, it may not be total profit, it may be gain and loss, but there is some business which is going on. And to do this quite well, it's prudent that you develop fundraising teams. Just have that in mind. It is too early for Kasana to have this, but be aware that is something. You would be involved as a club to get collaborations with various people. In this event, members of Kasana never work because you know your sister who is in Centenary Bank. I use that a lot because my younger sister works in Centenary Bank and used to be so much a senior manager in Centenary always. But even then, you need a memorandum of understanding with any institution you are supposed to be working with, such that your terms are very, very clear. What are you giving in? What are they bringing in? And what are the objectives that you are going to be dealing with? So memorandums of understandings assume, even if you've chosen the Diocese of Kasana, because you are members of the diocese, I want to assume, at the end of the day, you still need a written document between the two to agree on what are the deliverables where you are working through. The other deliverable for a club is club qualification. Now, this is a Rotary requirement. You may not have got to the level of having audited books of accounts, but in future, please pay attention to this area. Always, a club is expected to be qualifying on an annual basis. It means you're meeting the regulations of District 9211. And into this, there are memorandums of understanding you sign with the district. They would want to see your audited books of accounts. They would want to see various reports of projects which you've been working on. So club qualification is something, just like companies always do audited books and they report to the annual general assemblies. This is also what Rotary expects Kasana Rotarians to be doing and to report to the district. Fundamental in Rotary is the conflict of interest policy. And this, I want to raise my experience into it, that it has broken down so many clubs. Conflict of interest basically means that you have nothing. It is expected that whoever is going to be serving the club shall not have, if there is an interest, if there's an organization which is going to be serving the club members don't have interest in the other organization. I'll give an example. I went to the Rotary Club of Nakuru. Rotary Club of Nakuru has been there for over 50 years. And they did a project which was very big within Nakuru. And it was supplying water tanks to all homesteads. They had done over 6,000 tanks within a very big Nakuru as a constituency. What was happening was that the supplier of the materials was a Rotarian in the Rotary Club of Nakuru. cement, bars, all things which is done within construction. And he was the biggest supplier in the entire region. Now, in only cases that you can come up to see, Rotary will not expect you to give business to such a person when he's actually benefiting indirectly. However, in cases, hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, however, in cases where that he becomes the only supplier that can be dealt with, then the club is expected to declare that person that he's a Rotarian, but at the same time, he's the biggest supplier of raw materials. He's not going to be involved in decision-making of our club business in relation to that project. Members, conflict of interest, like IGG keeps looking for us, is when actually you're hiding and you are trying to see that a particular contract goes to your family member, goes to your personal business. It will be prudent that all club members declare that I have a workshop, I have a hotel, I have this, such that when the club members come to make decisions in that line of a hotel, it's known. And then everyone knows that Moses Musitwa's hotel is the one going to be used. So Musitwa should not participate in the decision-making process to award the hotel. They should be, because I'm a owner, I can come and I know the budget, I can come and decide on a price, which is just not fair to Rotary, simply because you have nowhere else to do. So members of Kasana, it is still early for you, but please come with a documented area, conflict of interest policies and practices. Wherever you see a Rotarian getting involved, and that is his profession or our profession, it will be prudent that the interests are declared in writing. The other thing which is important as a club is to build networks, synergies, and partnerships. That is going to be a very, very prudent process for you as a club. Working for synergies is when you are basically bringing something on board and another organization or individual is bringing something on board to achieve a particular case. Just look at how Rotary Uganda has worked with the cancer program. It has brought so many corporate institutions on board and eventually promised something as the corporations advertise themselves, they actually also go and give money to the cancer program, which Rotary is interested in. And that would be something which is very, very critical for a club. As a club, partnerships is going to be one of the issues you need to be dealing with. Finally, financial systems. How to pay, how to receive money, that's a very critical thing. Where we are going, we are in a digital world, and I've seen that many of the things work through Visa and MasterCard. So it will also be prudent that especially when you want to transmit money to Rotary International, you want to transmit money to pay this and that, it will be prudent that you come up with a system which is a little electronic. Mobile money is one of them, but that stops within Uganda. But you also need an international system as a club to deal with that. Now, as individuals, the ground zero for any Rotarian, the first thing, there is no Rotarian that is a Rotarian without an email account. That is, if email is going to fail you, you're going to fail understanding and practicing Rotary principles. So email access to digital world is going to be a requirement to all Rotarians. And by the way, to be very regular, one of the gaps we have as Rotarians is communication. International people keep complaining on us, we Ugandans. They send an email and we take 3-4 days. For them, they expect you in 6 hours to be responding. 3 days is actually okay in the Ugandan scenario, but we have people who take a full month without opening their emails. That is going to be a problem, and whoever is not going to read emails will not be able to work into the Rotary system. The other one, which is the club dues. We expected that all members need to be paying our club dues, both the international dues, the district dues, and also the club running funds. And this one, I think you have a system which is running about it. The other responsibility of each of us as Rotarians is the membership development. Now, members, Rotary keeps changing. If we were to do the Rotary we did in 2002, 2004, currently, we wouldn't be the numbers that we have. So always learning, training, learning, exposure visits are going to be part and parcel of the activities you'll be doing as a Rotarian. And this fortunate access to internet information can be dealt with, but it may not be enough. Interpretation and also learning from what other clubs do is also something which you will be looking into. Now, if you have a conflict of interest policy documented, each individual Rotarian is expected to abide by that. Actually, I was in a club where each one was called in front to swear against in front of other club members that they abide by the practice and they would think that they don't have to be looking into the things to abide by. Fundraising as Rotarians, individual, if there is any skill you're going to build in Rotary, it is partnerships and fundraising. We are not going to leave fundraising to specific individuals or business or presidents and club treasurers. No. All of us as Rotarians must build capacity to fundraise local, regional, international. That is one of the goals that a Rotarian must have into it. Fundraising does not mean to bring money. You have to look at the environment, determine what resources is there, and then talk to people who have those resources. For example, if it is water, you go to the water system in the suppliers in Luweero, Kasana town, and then talk to them about water, show that we can do something, and they will bring something, you bring something to see to it that the action is. So individually as members, fundraising is going to be there. In Chambogo, my club, we have fundraising teams. But for you to be able to develop the fundraising skills, it starts from the fact that you must have a number of projects. Then, and members, the fundraisers are different from the project implementers. You have a team whose role is to look for money and resources, not only money, but total resources for the project. Then you have another team whose role is basically to ensure that the implementation of the project is moving on. So some of these things are important as we deal moving on. Now, members, any Rotary club exists because of projects. Without a project, however small it would be, like visiting Sanyu Baby's home is a small project, 4 hours, but it requires travel, it requires resources, it requires media and all that. So all Rotarians must be able to develop concepts and proposals for the club. Actually, in my club, if you are to be joining a Rotary, our Rotary club, you are either coming in with a project or a project idea or a concept which you shall be able to work on with guidance of other members to realize that project to come into that very place. And that's the reason why most of our projects are out of Kampala. So projects, concept development is expectation of all club members. And to do this, many times you're expected to be looking to needs assessment of the club. Many times you are expected to look into needs assessment. You must have data. You must have cooperating organizations. These are the organizations out of Rotary who are interested in working with you. Oh my God, President. Okay. You must have cooperating organizations. There must be leadership on projects. Who is the team leader? Who are the compositions and all that? And in many cases, to do projects, they must be travel. And this is something you need to have into your mind as you are moving on to see that projects are done. Into your case, it will be important to have teams that actually on one side, for them, they are project developers only. then another team on another side who are fundraisers, then another team who actually involved into, and that is how you're going to get Rotarians' involvement in club activities. Members, from experience, Rotary has a lot of work. Should you ever leave it to one individual, like I'll give an example of Jessica because she's the one I know. Jessica will work for 3 consecutive years and burn out. She'll disappear and she'll usually go with sentiments. Abantu abo bankozesa natekamu sente zange ebintu byange ebyonooneka. At the end of the day, she hates Rotary simply because she was left to do everything alone. Rotarians' involvement is a very big scope of work that each and every individual should be assigned a responsibility. The key role I want to bring up onto here, we are all Rotarians, and in front of everybody, we are equal. Whether you're Director General, whether you're General Katumba Wamala in the army, when you join Rotary, you are equal to the other Rotarian who has just joined at the age of 24, 27. Your views are the same. Don't bring your titles from your organization. Don't bring your titles from your clan and make them become part and parcel of the Rotary Club of Kasana. We are guided by similar rules, irrespective of the capacity, irrespective of the money you have. They are supposed to be, you must be contributing somewhere, unless you choose to be a honorary Rotarian. These are people who have values and believe in the principles of Rotary. They may not have the time or they may be incapacitated, but they can afford to do network connections. They can afford to sit and look at things happening. Meanwhile, they are contributing money. Those are the honorable Rotarians. That can be something which will be doable. I want to bring it to members. In a Rotary club, we are all equal, irrespective of our age, irrespective of our status, irrespective of what we are dealing with. And it will be important to listen to one another. And for us to be fair to one, as we say, is it fair to all concerned? The critical thing we need to be dealing with is time management, because everyone has reserved 1 hour, 2 hours of that time. Members, that is very precious time, 1 hour to be set aside. Someone will be seated back home and enjoying to be with their families, enjoying football, enjoying swimming, but he feels there's a community need. Let me go and contribute. Then the other is like, oyo twamumanyira, oyo atana atukolachi. Those things are so derogatory that eventually they bring other members to lose the esteem they have, and eventually things don't work quite well. Members, in concepts and projects, you need to know that it is a cycle. There is the planning part, and members, if you get it wrong on the planning part, the entire system is going to fail. Then through that, you can see from the graph, there is planning, design, implementation until when it's commissioned. But now Rotary International wants us also to go through to the evaluation. And what you really need to know, that a project starts and a project stops. But for it to continue, there is some time when you have to see to it that it is an ongoing service. A project can be expounded, a project can be tilted. There are many things which happen into it. These are things which you need to know at the start of what, and that's why projects are many times done phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. When you know the bigger picture on what you're going to deal with. Fundraising is what I've looked into it, but just to create awareness about it, there is asking. We need to learn how to ask for gifts. That's a very important thing. And when we have been given, we need to acknowledge what has been given, and we also reaffirm and see that actually things. President, I want to run through. I want to read something which is also important to us. My Rotary experience. Rotary clubs don't do reports. Either they are irregular, they are red, or both. And that's a challenge you need to guard against. Members, whenever you are working with institutions, let it be Rotary International, other Rotary clubs out of it, let our reports be factual, accurate, but also timely. other than being reminded continuously to do this. Some of the times we find challenges is, members, audits. It is expected of a Rotary Club because you've registered as a legal part, annually you must do audits. External persons, professional external persons coming in to look into your systems. The other part which is important as leaders, please avoid sharing passwords. What happens is that the president has a right on the Rotary system. And then because the president is not so much in the digital world, he shares the password to another person who can go in the system and manipulate. You who was president and secretary, those are the two people who are given rights to edit and approve. You are reliable for any changes which are done into the system. So members, as much as possible, avoid sharing passwords because a fellow Rotarian is helping me to do something. It needs to be that you need to be there. If you are really committed and your password is required, ensure that you keep into the system. The other thing which is also my experience is that always use experts and consultants in doing these works of projects as much as possible, because at the end of that day, things get derailed, things get the critical. I'll tell you this, and in particular, quoting the experience I have in water sanitation and hygiene projects, that most of our projects are under budgeted for, simply because the people who are involved in developing those projects have not taken the technicalities. And the way you do wash in Karamoja is very different from Kumi, and it's very different from Arua, even if all of that is North and Northeastern Uganda. So those are some of the things that you need experts to be putting on board. You don't have past leaders, but many times we've relied so much giving past leaders to be, they know it all. That's a problem. Members don't do that. Everyone has his own time of leadership, and avoid. They must be bringing things onto table. What you really need to know, in the past, things would go under the table. Right now, if something goes wrong, the district is going to ask Rotary Club of Kasana Luweero to pay. And these are millions of shillings, and it translates into individual accounts, and you can see you were not involved in the decision and implementation, but they are telling you to refund money. That's something that we have to get guard against. Members, the other thing is corruption, nepotism. And many times you've not experienced it, but I'll tell you this, that many times external Rotary clubs, because they know, and they know you don't know, they can try to send things down into your club, and for you, you are only accepting. Yet actually in the number of cases, they are giving you things which are not applicable into Uganda. Actually, somewhere the district stops such a thing, but as a club, you need to get involved in analyzing what are they telling us to do. Is it authentic by the laws of Uganda? That's why somewhere money laundering has been mentioned into Rotary clubs, which actually was not intended. But at the end of the day, when you go back and see, it is just that the Rotarians on the local side were basically receiving things and not knowing the hidden implication of how things are supposed to be. Members, procurements are also something in a club that creates distortion among club members. It is best case that all procurements, usually when you are implementing project, you must have a procurement committee, that a committee sits and looks into, and it ceases to be Moses Musitwa, Yasazeo, supplier, gundi, ne gundi, ne gundi. No, there must be a committee that sits, and that is some of the do's that things work through. Clubs must ensure that their financial records are reviewed in a club assembly basis. Things of complaining, what Rotarians do, by the way, they are told there is an assembly and they are told to come and read through, they don't come, but they complain along the corridors. They complain along corridors and say, hey, Bundiabo, batwale, into centers of Meanwhile, when they tell you to come and give objective evidence, you cannot. And it is very, very important that our systems come to be reviewed. Financial records looks true. Just to look at an input and export of a project, always there is a baseline survey, designs, stakeholders engagement, procurement systems must be there, capability building systems, both for Rotarians and the beneficiaries, and also reports, final and projects. All these are things which have, now when you look at this, and the reason I had to bring it out, you can see that no single human being can do the entire process thoroughly as required by Rotary. So this engages each individual of us to participate somewhere at the end of the day, such that you would find that for only one project, by calculation, we did it in one club, 17 Rotarians were required to participate in one project. But then that club had 7 global grants. So that tells you how many members are supposed to be involved. 7 times 17 should be the population of the club, yet actually there were about 62. So you can see how much people get involved, how much people get overworked by the works of Rotary. The critical name, and that is that design. Please, members, protect that design as much as possible. Never do anything bad when you have that logo on your car, on your chest as a blouse or shirt, on your, anywhere in your office. As long as that logo is there, it is a mark of excellence, and individual Rotarians are expected to protect this logo diligently, and things which happen that. Then there is an element which I didn't mention, which brings up actually internal conflict. There's an area of internal, we have, this is about PR, public relations. Now, PR, which is external, this logo speaks a lot. But PR, which is internal within the club, is also something you need to manage very well. If there is something wrong, there is a song, if there is something wrong, as Rotarians, let's talk about it. Members in the club, ever create forums, the remazers, and talk of things which are not happening. Things which should be dealt with that must be worked on. The behavior of Moses Musitwa on street affects the club in Rotary Club of Kasana, Tuswaza. Come and talk about it. After that alone, you'll just see members leaving the club without knowing why members are going. And actually, there are so many controls that come into place when you choose to be a Rotary Club, because there are so many do's and don'ts. The truth of the matter is each club has its own way of behavior. In some clubs, it is okay. In other clubs, you must be in suits and ties. In some clubs, you can pay as you go. In other clubs, you must pay the entire dues by July 1st, and such that you are not demanded of anything. So each club has its own, and members, please guard against internal conflict. Try to do as much as possible elements of discussing whatever is affecting you internally. Let each member express his views. If Moses Musitwa is a drunko and some other member is finding challenges about it, say, please, I'm not comfortable, I'll be this and that, and please ensure that you appreciate one another. And that's what we call the diversity part. Someone will come back and tell you, Totumanyira, Fetuina sentence, Fogatoyagala agenda. And that alone sends away people, forgetting that all of us are influencers over the other. And that will be critical. Members, at this brand, when you put it on, you are never late. That is the critical role about Rotary. It is time management. And once you fail the aspect of time, all other things are going to be, it means also your fellowship will not be affected, you will not be perfect. It means also projects are going to be, and eventually, so they don't, what is supposed to be picked out of there, conflict management is important, time management is important, and then something which I want to share, and I have personally experienced it in Rotary clubs, is about our personal relationships. I want to say this, members, we are all adults, and we have all the instincts that given us to God. Should you ever find a need to remarry from the club, please make it official such that it is known to members, other than being a hidden agenda and creating dishonest or disgusting modes for other people. I've seen, we call it internal breeding. I've seen a lot of internal breeding issues which are affected Rotarians and eventually creating very big rifts in projects and eventually creating people moving away, others going. Some feel like they should kill one another at the end of the day. Personal relationships are your choices, but they should not affect the running of a Rotary club, and they should not affect the Rotary brand, which is actually therein. It's not as big, but in some incidences, and you know why I bring it up, is that when you talk to non-Rotarians, they are going to bring you those stories. Mwe tumamanyi mugenda kwanagana mu Rotary. Mugenda kwonoona amaka g'abannammwe mu Rotary. And it is wrong. It's simply because these two individuals or many individuals are not coming out straight to mention their intentions in public, which is actually affecting. And worst case, it is we the Rotarians who are taking this information out to the non-Rotarians and eventually sending a wrong name to this Rotary brand. That's why I had to put this brand on this presentation, that it looks simple, but there is a lot of value, there is a lot of attachment, that if you are just not interested, please don't misuse the brand. And it will be something which is part of your do's, and then the don'ts is where you're going to look on. Call to action. The call to action as I end, President and members, is basically one, let's respect one another, just as a human being. Respect that Musitwa is a Haji, so somewhere. Actually, to me, I do that so much in my club. Whenever they are inviting people, they have a bar where they go for their chimes and all that. I hardly go there. I actually don't. And they know Haji Leero enutoja. They do respect the values and systems I stand for. But then they will say, leero tetugenda kikola, Haji alina okuba naffe. So they will also lose their privacy and choices to just accommodate me to be with them in a particular. So respecting one another to bring things to how things are supposed to be working on common principles of the club is the critical role for individuals. Then the second point, it will be, let us divide ourselves across. Your president for 1 year, members being a president for 1 year is a tall order. By the time it is June 30th, you're looking forward to handing over. There's just a lot of work. And let us support our fellow leaders in the system. When someone tells you, let's do this, it's not because you are gezi. I've shown you that there is a lot of work in this Rotary system which has to be done, that leaving it to one individual, he or she may not even have the brains, the experience, the expertise, but because she handles the role as president, then everything becomes her responsibility. Then she does it the wrong way and you blame him. At the end of the day, there is that things we need to deal with and actually need to be. Individual contribution is critical, then club systems is something we need to get on. President, I submit for God and my country.
Thank you so much.
And I've been so audible.